Welcome to Frank and Upfront. I am your host, Mr. Franklin. A very special welcome to all of you who are joining me here on this podcast. I invite you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I would also like to wish a very happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, the expectant mothers to be, the mothers in spirit who can find it within their hearts to tend to children who are not their own and treat them as if they were their own offsprings. Mothers who realize that true motherhood isn't about the biological element of procreation, but about the spirit. And also as well, a happy Mother's Day in memory of those who have passed on. Today's topic: teach the youths. Now, many school syllabuses, if you look at the syllabuses, you would see most of them are similar. And this is international, by the way. It doesn't matter if it's the American school system or the Westminster system that is used in the UK and also in the Caribbean. It doesn't matter. Most syllabuses you would find from about, I would say, especially high school syllabuses and middle school syllabuses, from about grade 8 to about 12, consists of teaching the kids useless information and even deliberate lies. False narratives such as Columbus being a hero when he was really a dunce and a rapist. And other useless details that cannot be or isn't applicable to real world scenarios. Things like trigonometry and calculus, when really and truly the only math you need is the math that teaches you how to count your money and count time and to measure distance and volume as well. And that's it. And to measure area and perimeters and these things. That's the only math you really need. Calculus, unless you're going to be a nuclear scientist or something like that, you probably won't be using your calculus or your trigonometry or your indices skills unless you're going to be some kind of computer programmer. You probably won't be needing your matrices and your indices. Yet they are cramming this useless information down the minds of children, young people, and they are expected to recite what is being taught to them. There is probably a disconnect because deep down inside the kids know that this information is irrelevant. It most likely will not be applied to real world scenarios. And so there's a disconnect. And then you fail that child and he spent their whole life thinking he's dumb, which is just asinine in and of itself. There's an old adage: if you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing it is stupid. Why? The fish is being forced to coexist not coexist, to exist outside of his natural element. The Creator gave each creature unique capabilities. The eagle he gave wings to fly. The fish he gave gills to swim. Or fins, or both actually. He gave the cheetah the legs to run what seems to be 1,000 miles a minute. He gave the giraffe a neck that could reach the California redwoods. He gave the lion the strength of 10 armies of men. But the lion is king. My point is, when someone forces you to go against the nature of who you are and the talents you were given, I believe they're committing a sin. They're sinning against nature itself. When someone takes you out of your natural element and forces you to coexist in a world that you were not equipped to survive in, it is a sin and a betrayal against nature itself. The fish wasn't meant to climb a damn tree. Monkeys were given the agility to climb trees. Let the monkey or the baboons or whoever it is in that animal, in that family, they have the agility. Let them climb the tree. But that's not to say the fish doesn't have a purpose. The fish belongs to the ecosystem. The fish has its own capability. But the fish may never know what that is if you're trying to force him to climb a damn tree. And then you judge him when he can't. But that's not his strength. His strength is in the water. You know the DC comic superhero Aquaman? Aquaman is worthless out of water, but in water he's king of the 7 seas. The same thing with the fish. You have equality and you have equity. Equality is to give each character the same exact test and give them a half an hour to complete the test, and he who climbs a tree is believed to be superior. That's equality, so-called. Then you have equity, where you give each character a test that is tailor-made and unique to his special capabilities. Well, how does that tie into your topic for today, Mr. Franklin? Well, different students have different backgrounds. We're born with different talents and capabilities that they may never know now because they are being socially pressured to follow in daddy's footsteps. If daddy was a lawyer and your grandfather was a lawyer too, and your great-grandfather was a lawyer too, well, you have to be a lawyer too, otherwise they label you a black sheep. But what if you want to be a rock star? Or a musician, or a drummer, or something like that? You know? Those are your talents, but if you're sleeping on your talents, you may never know how good or how good of a drummer you could have been. Why? Because you let people force you into living your life on their terms, not yours. That is a sin and an act of betrayal against nature itself. You are trying to force each student, if you go along with the school system as it is being laid out now currently in our world, they're trying to force each student to believe himself to be smart based on their standards. Well, some people are good with their hands. Some people are artists and painters. Some people are interior decorators, while others are architects, while others are carpenters. While others are florists, while others are even bakers and chefs. While others are animators and writers and directors and actors. While others are very talented behind a steering wheel. They love to drive. You know, why is it that I would dare even say maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of students are graduating every year and they do not know how to write a resume, how to apply for a job, how to balance a book, how to do a budget, a personal budget. And if you can't do a personal budget, how are you going to do a business budget? Don't know how to even manage a bank account or even service their debt. Don't even know how to do that. Leave school and they're fucking dunce. How you don't know how to do these things? And these are basic survival things that people need to know how to do. What are you learning in school? Why are parents spending thousands of dollars in tuition costs to send children to school for which they're either learning nothing or they're learning nothing of substance or value? They're being crammed with useless information that is in adherence to the agenda of the powers that be. I have been thinking a lot lately about this. Perhaps the coronavirus has presented us with an opportunity to revamp the school syllabus, especially at the high school level. It is up to us now to recognize the opportunity when we see it and seize that opportunity. But we know how stubborn these people are. Will they change the syllabus? No, I don't think so. The syllabus, as it is currently, suits their agenda. Someone profits from a bunch of kids graduating every year and not knowing basic life skills. Someone profits from that. That's why they keep doing it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Otherwise, they would have been changed the syllabus. And then being fully aware that what they're teaching your kids is useless information. They're forcing you to send your kids to their indoctrination encampment. Yeah, that's what school is. School is an indoctrination encampment. Why do you think they call it a campus? Because a campus is a camp. A camp for learning, a camp for indoctrination, brainwashing. Anyhow, and then they have the audacity to add insult to injury by charging you exorbitant tuition fees to send your kids to their indoctrination encampments. You willfully, you mindless automatons, willfully turn your children over to the custody of the state for 6 hours, where they are kept on a campus or a camp. They are not allowed to leave. There is a guard at the gate preventing them from going on to the streets, otherwise known as a dean of discipline or a prison warden. These kids are literally in jail. That's why they're so unruly and defacing school property, because it's frustrating being locked up in a damn prison camp for goddamn 6 hours a day from 8 till 2. It's frustrating. Especially when they are turning like 14 and 15 and they start smelling themselves and they feel that they're grown and they want their freedom. It is so frustrating. So they're going to start to rebel. They're going to start to engage in fights and deface the school property. And you know what? You can't complain because you're not doing right by them. I'm not saying they're right, though. They could have thought of different means by which to air their grievances responsibly. But then again, I'm asking too much because they're like 14, going through puberty, and being held in a damn state prison against their will for 6 hours a day. So perhaps I'm asking too much of the kids. The onus should be on the adults. The system is designed to work the parents to death so they don't have time to teach their own kids. They have no wealth of their own, so they got to go out and work at someone else's job don't have time to teach their own kids. It takes away from their own family time. And some households have a single parent. Some households are not nuclear households. They have a single parent, or maybe an elderly caregiver, maybe a grandmother or something, or an uncle. You know? And that single parent or that grandmother is always working. And when the kids are off from school, that caregiver is at work during the primetime hours of the evening when they're supposed to be having dinner at the dinner table and discussing how the day went and asking the kids, what did you learn in school today? And helping the kids with their homework and teaching them, correcting what they were taught in school, so that if the child says something, they could probably rebut with, well, that doesn't sound right, you know? But no, they diminish our wealth, force us to work for them, so we don't have time to correct our kids when they're teaching them foolishness. By the time that caregiver or that single parent comes home from work, the child is dead asleep in bed. And by the time the child wakes up to go to school the following morning, that guardian or single parent is dead asleep in bed. And they don't even get to see each other. And if it happens to be a two-parent household, it could be a situation where one parent works till late, probably working the late shift at the hospital till 11:30 at night, and just as she's coming home, the father is going out to his graveyard shift at some construction site or wherever. And so none of them get to spend quality time with the kids like during the prime time hours when they're supposed to, and eat dinner together as a family around a damn dinner table like they're supposed to. And that causes the breakdown of family structure. That's why there's no respect, there's no morals, there's no foundation of family or the understanding or appreciation of family or community or any of those things. Because of the situation in which we're forced to live. We were never supposed to live this way. But you better believe the status quo is deliberately designed for this reason. So with you being on your kids' lives now because of your work schedule, the state is free to teach them whatever they want, unchecked and unchallenged. And because the kids are so young and impressionable, they don't know any better. They are lucky if new details reach their desk. But that's probably years in the future when they're fully grown and have left school, and by then it's probably too late. You know? So, the state prison camp has free reign to teach your kids whatever garbage they feel like teaching them, unchecked. Unchecked. And the kids leave school and they don't know any better. They have been so gaslit out of their minds. They go through the world thinking they can still function in the real world, the actual world of work, as they did in high school, and they can't, and they often fumble. Somehow I think the teachers and the administrators and the people who write the syllabus get a rush out of watching you realize that what you learn in school in concept and theory is not how the real world runs. But I digress. Anyway, my original point was they have you working their jobs to make the money to pay the exorbitant tuition fees. So not only is your work schedule fixed to keep you away from your children while they're still awake during the primetime hours, but also, which is actually the time to have quality bonding family time, but also they're having you work to pay the tuition to keep them in school, to keep them learning this useless information. The education system is broken and corrupt, just like with everything else in our society. The court, the police, the tax system, the labor system, the healthcare system, everything is corrupt. Let me drink some water right now. Yeah. Okay, and the education system is no different. And like I said, someone is profiting from the dysfunction and dereliction of the education system, and they want to keep that system in place forever if they could. And they won't listen to my suggestion as to what the syllabus should truly consist of. But that will not stop me from giving you my ideas regardless. Perhaps someday it will reach the right person who will be able to implement change as to what the syllabus should truly consist of. I have come up with a kind of a poem called Teach the Youths that kind of encompasses what school syllabus is, the standard DOE sanctioned school syllabus should consist of. The poem sounds something like this. Teach the youths how to flex with each other. Teach the youths that peace and love in schools is cool. Teach the youths to practice proper birth control methods if they are not ready to start a family. Teach the youths to be patient in choosing their life partner, and that it is better to wait long than to marry wrong. Teach the youths the red flags of what an abusive potential spouse or partner looks like. Teach the youths the red flags that they may be already in an abusive situation at home with their parents. Teach the youths that all abuse is not physical, and that, for that matter, the emotional and psychological abuse leaves behind lingering scars for far longer and far deeper scars. Teach the youths to not neglect red flags that they're being abused, no matter how subtle it may be. Teach the youths that if you sit long enough in shit, the shit will no longer stink. Otherwise known as Stockholm Syndrome, or as I call it, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm, because they're stuck at home. Literally. Teach the youths to not remain in a situation that is unfavorable longer than they absolutely need to, otherwise known as reducing pain tolerance. Teach the youths how to cook and bake. Even the boys too. After all, we are living in the 21st century. If you will wait for a woman to cook for you, you will likely starve. Teach the youths how to do carpenter work. Teach the youths carpentry, that they can do repairs around the house. Teach the youths the different tools for which they can become familiar. Let not the work tools be a stranger to the youths. Teach the youths how to drive an automobile. Also, teach them how to change their brakes and tires and their oil so that they don't have to get ripped off by pep boys and labor costs. They can do it themselves. Teach the youths how to open up a bank account and save money. Teach the youths how to balance a checkbook. Teach the youths how to create a budget on a spreadsheet. Teach the youths the electoral process by which to become enumerated. Teach the youths how to write their resume and apply for jobs. Do actual workshops with them in the computer lab, where you're applying for actual jobs online, or even filling out dummy applications. Yeah, that too. Teach the youths how to be nice to everyone and respect each other and themselves. Teach the youths how to love, for one will not know how to, well, let me start over with that one. Teach the youths how to love themselves, for one will not know how to love others if not himself first. Teach the youths how to be in touch with his or her inner feelings. How to listen to intuition so they know when something feels off. To keep them out of trouble. Teach the youths how to trust their own inner gut feeling as opposed to relying externally for their sense of reality to be dictated to them. Teach the youth the true actual history of the world. Teach the youths something uplifting, especially the black youth who believes that the slave story is his story. Never mind there were 12,000 years of history, or even 60,000 years of history before the beginning of the slave trade. Teach the youth the actual true history of the world, something for which he can be proud For after all, how can they expect for you to be proud, sir, of a story for which you're being told that you were a slave and then you were freed and that's it? Teach the youth something uplifting for which you can be proud. Teach the youths how to love and appreciate themselves and to become the best versions of themselves. Teach the youths relevant mathematical computations as it relates to the measurement of distance or volume or perimeter or time or money. Teach the youths how to sew. Teach the youths agriculture. Teach them how to sow seeds, how to plant, how to harvest, and how to replant. Teach the youths a little bit of plumbing and electrical work that they can do repairs around the house on their own without calling the plumber or the electrician. Teach the youths how to interior decorate and to maintain his own home. How to sweep, mop, have them maybe sweep and mop the schoolyard and clean up after themselves on a certain day of the week. Maybe on a Monday, right? So that they are taught discipline and responsibility. Teach the youths how to read and study people that they know when they're being lied to or taken for a joyride. Teach young ladies how to value themselves. Respect themselves. Teach young men how to lead and take charge and be bold in their assertions without being too overly aggressive. Teach the youths that being bold and standing up for what you believe to be right is not disrespect, and that anybody who tells you otherwise is a narcissist who can't take losing. Teach the youths that their value is not tied up in sex and that there's far more in the outside world, far more hues to their existence on this plane outside of sex. Teach young ladies that young men are also worthy and deserving of respect, not just them. Teach young ladies how to mutually reciprocate. Teach young ladies how to be respected and how to also respect others as well. Teach young men how to respect and how also to be respected as well. Teach them mutual reciprocity. Teach them about equality of the treatment that they deserve. Teach young girls that it's not just entirely about her. Teach her how to not be vain and narcissistic and have her face plastered up into 27,000 Instagram pictures all day, every day. Teach young ladies that if she does not believe anyone should be hitting her, then she should not be putting her hands on others either. Let me rephrase that one. Teach young ladies that if she believes that men in particular are not supposed to be putting his hands on a woman, that she herself is not to be putting her hands on a man either. Teach young ladies that a man is entitled to protect himself, and that if she believes herself to be big enough and bold enough to fight the man, then she should also believe herself big enough and bold enough to get hit as well. I know I may probably have lost a few viewers at this point. If you're still with me, understand, it sounds bold, but it's fear. I'm not here to make friends. Fear is fear. Teach the young people that they are the future, and that if they want a better tomorrow, they have to be the ones to work on it, and it starts today. Teach the youths that if they are discontent with the current status quo, they should figure out what to do about it, and then they should actually do it. Teach the youths that they do not get any other kind of respect outside of the basic respect that they are actually due, the respect of them being human. Teach them that they are not deserving, or not owed, I should say, respect unless they do something really cool. Teach the youth that cloud chasing and entitlement is redundant, and they can do far better by contributing, by making contributions to this world to make it a better place than the one that they found when they got here. And that's how truly to earn respect and clout. Teach the youths that no one owes you anything, really. Teach them to work for whatever they want. Teach them to respect their opponents. May the best man win. If you think you're so great, why do you feel the need to sabotage your opponent? Teach the youths once again that contributions that they make in this world is what will earn them respect. No one owes you anything, really. And that whatever they get, they have to be willing to work for it fair and square. Teach the youths to recognize if someone is attempting to sabotage their life and their career path, and to flee from that situation. Teach the youth to grow their own food and not depend solely on the government for your resources. Teach the youth to be self-sufficient. Teach the youths that there is no power in eating at someone else's mercy. Teach the youths that he who you owe owns you. He who you owe owns you. Teach the youths how not to be in debt. Teach the youths proper debt management, which is deserving an entire video of its own. Teach the youths how to budget themselves and how to set goals, set deadlines, and meet the deadlines, especially insofar as paying off debt is concerned. Teach the youths that there's no value of being in debt, no value whatsoever in being in debt. Teach the youths effective money management. Once again, we go back to the budgeting. Teach the youths how to not buy useless things that they have no use for. Sneakers and all that rubbish. Yes, I said rubbish. But finally, teach the youths what the real world of work looks like. Now, you're probably wondering what compelled me to think of this poem and to think of more useful, practical things that could be added to the syllabus. But, I was listening to PTE recently on her program, and she was talking about the virtual classroom for which students are given their curriculums online. And she was saying that the students are not participating. And she herself even outlined several things that could be done differently to capture student attention. And she's right. And I'm here now to expound on that. The students do not have ADHD. These students are being misdiagnosed as having a mental illness and given medication they do not need, when really and truly it's not the children's fault. They do not have ADHD. The teacher is boring and she's teaching them things that are irrelevant and trying to force them to pay attention to irrelevant, useless information. And when she doesn't get her way and she doesn't get the attention that she wants, she fails them and misdiagnoses them as having ADHD and even prescribes medication for them that they don't even need. Does this teacher have the authority to be prescribing any kind of psychotropics or recommending the prescription of any kind of psychotropics, or even diagnosing people as having a mental illness in the first place if she is not a psychiatrist? The teacher is not a psychiatrist. Where does she get off actually believing herself as having the right to diagnosing people and recommending the treatment that they may need, you know? Many of these teachers are narcissists. And that's what PTE was saying, and I agree with her. The students were not participating even before virtual classrooms were a thing. And now they're still not participating. If the students were not participating in the lesson being taught to them, during a time when they were right there in the classroom, physically present in the classroom, what made you believe that the students would suddenly gain interest when they were in the privacy of their domain, albeit with a webcam on? You know, for all you know, these students could be acting as if they're looking at the camera, paying attention, and they're looking at the phone being placed slightly above the camera, playing their Xbox or their video games. But these people's control will never end. They have to find a way to control you regardless. Which is why they insist that you pay attention to them, if not in a physical classroom, then most certainly through a dash cam. Not dash cam, I'm sorry. Webcam, right? Many of them just want the attention. They just want the attention, and they want to be able to see you and see what you're doing physically. Actually physically lay eyes on you, see what you're doing and control you. It's a control thing. Which is why the syllabus that is currently in place is not going anywhere really and truly. Because it serves to infantilize students well past the age of majority and keep them dependent on the state and caregivers or even their senior parents. It is not preparing them for a real actual world of work. It is designed to infantilize them. They want to keep them young forever. Well, nothing wrong with being young forever. But there is something extremely toxically wrong with keeping someone immature forever. They want to keep them immature forever. Keep them irresponsible forever, or for as long as possible. They don't have any real social skills or real world of work skills. And they graduate from high school and they are tossed out, kind of literally dumped out into the world of work to cope on their own. And they're ill prepared and they know nothing about life. And if the syllabus was as I had suggested it should have been, then this wouldn't be a problem. They would have at least some understanding as to how to function in the real world of work. Which is why I said the final thing I said in the poem, teach the youths. The final thing I said, teach the youths how to function in the real world of work. And here's what I mean by that. "18 being the age of consent is redundant and retarded. In the 19th century, kids in the South and in the Caribbean, they were able to work from they were like 12. So then they're capable. A 12-year-old is capable. Well, no, not the age of consent. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. Not the age of consent. Consent for what? No, the age of majority. The age where one has rights to do adult things, like get driver's licenses and vote and all those things, and actually work. Right? So I'm talking about the age of majority. My mistake, right? Now, I'm not saying lower the age of majority to 12, even though you had 19th century kids working at the age of 12, and even up until as late as maybe the 1920s. Farm kids were like working, albeit they were exploited and taken advantage of, and were made to work long 16-hour shifts per day. But, and I can see why the age of majority was designed to protect those kids from those harsh work conditions. But that was 100 years ago. The world has improved since then. Human rights have improved since then. So no, they won't be working 16-hour days or 20-hour days anymore. And besides, what was initially intended to protect them is now being used to infantilize them and take advantage in another fashion while appearing as if you're protecting them. Here's what I recommend. Students should be in the classroom up until, I would say, the age of 15. At the age of 15, let me say something here. If a 15-year-old is in the 9th grade, right? Okay, fine. A 15-year-old is a freshman in high school. So the first year of high school is in the classroom. Or the first 2 years is in the classroom, 15 and 16. Okay, fine, fair enough. Now, your junior and senior years in high school should be a mandatory internship in offices and other workplaces, mandatorily system-wide. The entire DOE should sanction all of their students to do a 2-year mandatory internship at jobs, primarily office jobs, all across America. And you cannot graduate unless you complete X amount of internship hours with a passing grade higher than, say, 60 or 70 or whatever standard they set. The internship could be a paid internship, But seeing as how they're not gonna be responsible for paying any bills, seeing as how they still live with their parents, it doesn't have to be minimum wage. It could be a little bit lower. It could be like $5 an hour, just a little stipend, right? They could be paid a little $5 an hour stipend to do an internship, a mandatory internship in an office setting or some other location, where they will get a real feel of what the real world of work is. So when they graduate at 18, they can hit the ground running. They will be prepared because they got their feet wet. Oh, and that stipend, by the way, you could maybe take them on a field trip to the bank and teach them how to open a bank account, a checking account, and how to maintain a debit card. The internship could maybe be done, I would say, Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday you meet back at school to discuss the events of the week and what you learned, share notes, and then you could share notes maybe from 9 till 12, then go to lunch, and then when you come back from lunch at 1 o'clock, you go on a damn field trip to the bank or some other thing like that, place like that, where you learn some more real world survival skills. This Friday could be the bank, next Friday could be car dealership, yet the third Friday could be a mechanic. So they see how real cars are actually worked on. And yet the fourth Friday could actually be a damn state penitentiary, so they see how inmates are living as a deterrent as to why they should stay on the straight and narrow and not get into any trouble to begin with. Oh, by the way, another field trip could be maybe at the police precinct, so they see how cops actually work. And then they can decide, and then the cop could lecture them as to the ins and outs of police work, so they can make up their minds as to whether or not they want to be a cop. But the internship will be like Monday through Thursday from like maybe 9 till 5. Yeah, actual real work day. 8-hour work day with like your 1 hour lunch break. Right? 9 till 5. And they get a little stipend for it. And they learn to save. And that would be like the last 2 years of high school, their junior and senior year. They cannot graduate without successfully completing 400 hours of internship. There could maybe be an open house where different employers actually visit the school on open house day and talk about their company and what they do, and invite students to maybe sign up for internships at a company of their choosing based on their career fields. And what that does is that kind of exposure trains the young mind to believe himself to be mature, so that he does not behave in immature, irresponsible ways, and so that he does not allow himself to be treated like a damn child, even when he's like in his 30s or 40s. That's what we see happening now. We see corporations and jobs treating their employees like children, and we see even the parents trying to treat their adult children like children, even in the presence of their own children. And if you don't call them aside and say, Mom and Dad, you can't be doing this, those parents will teach their grandkids how to not respect you. You will no longer have any authority in your own house. And why? Because the system has been put in place from day one to train our minds into being infantalized. And so we think it's okay to be treated like children, so much so to the point we don't even realize when someone is being condescending to us. Because our minds have been trained to believe this to be normal, and it is not normal. And you wonder why many of us remain so stagnated in life and we're stuck at home with our parents till we're damn near 30 years old. You wonder why. You wonder why. What this kind of exposure does, and treating young people like they're adults, it retrains your mind to fight the infantilization programming that's being run on you anyways. You see what I'm saying? That's why, even though I know they're probably not going to pick up my syllabus idea, we still need to push it regardless. Hopefully one day it will reach the right person who has the power to make a change, and they will implement my ideas in a school syllabus. Especially as far as the internship is concerned between 16 and 18, and actually considering lowering the age of majority down to about 15 or 16. Because once you're 15, you're developed, your mind is capable, and you can function in the real world of work. The reason why you can't is because the system tells you that you can't. The reason why you can't is because they have been running a program of infantilization on your mind since you were a toddler. That's why you can't function at 15. Otherwise, in the alternate timeline where 15-year-olds were given autonomy, they would have been more capable, because the mind is developed at 15 to a certain extent that they can take on certain adult responsibilities. Why they even look the part. Now, don't confuse the age of majority with the age of consent. Just because they have the age of majority type of autonomy to behave and function as an adult in society doesn't mean that they can legally give consent, sexual consent, sexually speaking. That can maybe remain at its current age of 18 until whatever. I'm not advocating that 16-year-olds are legally allowed to give consent. Even though the age of consent is 16 in some states, New Jersey readily comes to mind. But we know how people feel about pedophilia, so I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to lower the age of consent. We could keep it at 18, you know. But what needs to be lowered, however, is the age of majority that allows the autonomy for a 15-year-old to function as a grown adult in society, so that they're able to actually do their internships for the last 2 years of high school until they're 18. Then they graduate, and then they can hit the ground running in the real world of work. But finally, I must reiterate, and by the way, many people believe, especially if you're black, or you're from the islands, or if you have one of those kinds of backgrounds, you believe that a 16-year-old who is portraying a grown-up energy, an adult energy, is disrespectful. Yes. Let's talk about that one. You believe somehow, I don't know where that even come from. It's asinine. But you believe that an assertive 16, 17-year-old, or even a young person, any young person, even if he or she has reached the age of majority, even when they're in their 20s, you still want to condescend and talk down to them even when they're in their 20s. And if they stand up for themselves, you bully them, you shout them down, and you tell them that they're being disrespectful even when they're in their 20s. So then imagine when they're like in their teens. I don't know where that preconceived notion comes from. But many West Indian parents, brutal, narcissistic as hell, slave master Caribbean parents, believe that an adult's demeanor in a 16-year-old is disrespectful. And I'm saying, no, it's not. You have disrespect and you have assertion. Two different things. I don't believe that we could implement my ideas unless we change that mindset. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if we're going to have to fight our way through to a place where we have the right to treat 16-year-olds like they're grown without people being offended by it, or if we're just going to sit around and wait until people with that mindset just go extinct, and then we can rebuild on their graves. I don't know. But that mindset, that condescending, narcissistic, controlling mindset, where you want to infantilize people well past the age of majority, it has got to go if we're going to defeat the programming of infantilization in the minds of our youth. It's got to go. And once again, I reiterate, the internship and the exposure of young people into the adult world of work, giving them some responsibility, treating them like adults, it helps to fight against the infantilization mental programming that has been run on them by the system and society as a whole since they were literally toddlers. It's been in subliminal messages, it's been in the media, in school, on the streets, in society in general. It's all over the place, and it serves a purpose, and someone very evil and twisted is trying to hold that system in place. And if for no other reason for which we are doing this, then certainly for the reason of defeating that programming. If for no other reason, certainly for the reason of starting a paradigm shift where we start to treat younger, we start to treat people like they're adults, younger and younger. And we start to give them more responsibilities, more adult responsibilities at a younger age. But the paradigm shift starts with you, and it starts today. Next week's topic: the different stages of money management. I hope you join me then. I am Mr. Franklin. This has been Frank and Upfront.
Now put it in, now put them away. The people are suffering. No teach me nothing, just teach me something. No teach me nothing, just teach me something. Oh, dear corner and save your life. Ain't that no jive? My